Hey folks, welcome back to Average Joe's Game Review. I'm here with
Average Joe,
the man himself. And today, what game are we going to talk about this week, Joe?
It's not an actual video game, but it is a collectible card game called Star Wars Destiny.
And so this is made by Fantasy Flight Games. We're going to talk about an analog game. So what are your thoughts?
Well, introduction and first impression where the gameplay is fairly simple once you understand it, though it may take a playthrough or two to get there to fully understand it.
Yep.
It's possible to play multiplayer, and there is a format in the rules reference for doing so with a couple of changes from the 1v1 format, because that's what it's based off of, a 1v1.
Yeah, so that's the main play style, and that's what we'll generally be talking about throughout the show today.
Because that's what we normally play.
There is a different format coming out soon. We'll kind of mention that, but it's called Rivals, and it's basically a way to play through draft format, which is super fun too. Well, hopefully it'll be fun in this game. I like it in other games. I haven't played it yet with Star Wars Destiny.
Because it's not out yet.
But to begin with, what's it look like as far as just set up the scene for us? What's the game look like?
Okay, so each player has their own draw deck. You play with the starter versions, which consists of 20 cards. We'll talk about those in a minute. Or with a constructed deck consisting of exactly 30 cards, which is what you would need in order to play in any kind of organized play event, and a team of characters. Each character has a point value, specifically for deck building. Actually, if it's a unique character, they have 2-point values. One if you're using the character with a single die, and a second higher value if you're using double die, or the elite version of the character. When constructing your deck, you have 30 points to build your team of characters with.
There are 3 card affiliations in the game. You can be hero, villain, or neutral on any card. Unless otherwise specifically stated through card effects, hero and villain cards can never be used in the same deck. Neutral cards can be played in any deck.
Unfortunately, that means you can't have Rand, Kylo Ren on the same team.
Stink.
Or Darth Vader and Luke. I cry every time.
Although there is an Anakin coming out who's neutral with the draft set.
Ooh.
Just saying.
Anakin.
So the one other thing to note about deck building before we get into actual gameplay is that there are 4 colors of cards, which represent different traits of that card or character. So there's red for command, yellow for rogue, blue for force, and gray for general or neutral. When you select your team of characters, the colors they represent determine the color cards you can include in your draw deck. So for any of you who've ever played Commander EDH style Magic, it's similar to that. Like the characters you're using dictate the colors that go into the deck building. So after that, you get a bunch of opportunities to customize your deck with the cards you choose to put into it. Whether you prefer straight up damage dealing or more intriguing strategizing kind of ways of playing or mill style is totally up to you. There are play sets within this. Since it's a 30-card deck, the play set is 2 cards as the max that you can have of any single title card. So why don't we jump right into the gameplay itself?
All right, to start the game, players take their character dice. For example, take your Luke Skywalker and Han Solo dice and roll them. Add the numbers, and whoever has the higher number gets to choose the battlefield.
So you start with the characters in play.
Yes.
So that people know.
So you pull out your cards, you put them to the side or whatever you want to do. Put out your hero cards, grab their dice, roll them. And there's damage values, resource values, and a bunch of other things. And when you roll it, say I have 3 damage and 2 resources, then I have 5 points total. And say if Harold rolls a 1 damage and a 1 disrupt, then he only has 2, and I get to pick the battlefield.
And so that's the one other thing that we bring with us to the game is we each have a battlefield selected that for whatever reason we choose to go along with our deck. And they have various different abilities and stuff associated with the different battlefields.
So, whoever has the higher number gets to choose the battlefield, and if the winner chooses your battlefield, then they get 2 shields, but you go first. And the other way around if they choose their battlefield. Players then begin the game drawing their hands of 5 cards.
So the goal of the game initially is to defeat your opponent's team of characters, or secondarily to run them out of cards in their deck and their hand, i.e. milling them, which I'm a little partial to.
Yeah.
Padme is my friend.
Yeah, no. I'll stick to Anakin.
But here's where we get back to the simplicity of the game. There are 6 basic actions, right? Play a card, activate a character or support, resolve the dice. So when you activate the character or support is when you actually like kneel the character or exhaust them is the game terminology here. And then you actually roll their dice into the pool if they have dice with them. So then resolving the dice is a separate action. Discard a card from your hand to re-roll any dice that you have out there, or you could trigger a card action or claim the battlefield. Basically players go back and forth, taking one action at a time or passing, with the exception that if you claim the battlefield, you pass any future turns, and the other player just gets to kind of run out whatever they wish for actions. When both players pass consecutively, the round ends, and we enter the upkeep phase, where you basically reset the board state, claiming 2 new resources, standing your characters back up, drawing back up to 5 cards in hand. You do get to discard any cards in your hand that you didn't want to keep before drawing up to 5. And then this is where the mill win condition might set in, if a player has no cards in their hand, nor any cards in their deck to draw. So if that happens during the upkeep phase, that player is out of the game. As long as this is not the case, both players who have at least one active character remaining begin the next round, and with the player controlling the battlefield getting that first action.
So now we're going to move on to the starter packs, the booster packs, and just general ways to get the cards and start playing the game.
Each starter deck includes 2 character cards with corresponding dice, a battlefield, and a 20-card deck, or in the case of the 2-player game, you get 2 20-card decks, along with the 2 character cards for each in the corresponding dice, as well as the dice that correspond to different cards within those decks. So for the Kylo Ren starter, you get to start off with Kylo Ren and a First Order Stormtrooper, who, spoiler, misses a lot. In the case of the Rey starter, you get Rey and Finn, and in the case of the 2-player game starter, you get a new version of Rey and Poe, and a new version of Kylo and Phasma, so you have a hero and a villain deck.
Alright, well, that sounds great. My only problem is, I feel like the dark side's underpowered here with that Stormtrooper seems to miss most of his attacks. Doesn't seem like a real fair fight.
So how do you get more cards?
Booster packs include 5 randomized cards and 1 premium die, corresponding to the rare or legendary card. What does it already mean? A fixed/starter card is gray. Common is light blue, 3 per booster pack. Uncommon is yellow, 1 per booster pack. Rare is green. Legendary is purple, 1 of either rare or legendary per booster pack.
It seems to run about, probably you're getting around 6 legendaries per booster box, and then the other 30 are going to be your kind of regular rare cards. As far as the sets released so far, they've released what's called Awakening, Spirit of the Rebellion, Empire at War, the 2-player game, and then we're moving into what's coming up.
The Legacies, introducing new game mechanics. Indirect damage, the damage is done to a player's character, but the player chooses the character it impacts.
So usually when we're playing and I do some damage, I can either do melee or ranged, and they're effectively the same type of damage for what they do in the game. It just corresponds to whether other cards or other dice interact with them and whether you can resolve them all at once. So the new thing with the indirect damage is, instead of me saying, I'm doing 3 melee damage to your Kylo, I'm doing 3 melee damage, but it's coming to you, and you get to choose how to distribute it amongst your characters.
So if I'm playing with Kylo and Phasma, I could say Phasma takes 2, Kylo takes 1, because I like Kylo more.
And you could do all of it to one of them. You could also, the other really interesting thing with indirect damage is that you can do it to yourself, because there are interactions that they're making, especially with Rogue, the yellow color, which I love to play, where things happen when indirect damage is dealt to a character.
Personally, I don't understand why you'd want to hurt yourself, but, we'll roll with it.
What about plot cards?
All right, so plot cards are a specific start-of-game effect. They cost points to round out your starting team of characters. They cost 1 to 3 points. There's also power actions, which is an extra powerful action that may be triggered only once per round.
Nice. So I love those plot cards, because I've definitely wanted to build those teams where I end up with like 28, 29 points, and you're like, oh man, I don't want to just sit on that, because you're going to have some innate advantage coming into the game if you have more points, because they do a fairly decent job trying to balance them out. And if they're not balanced out and they've realized that, they will generally errata, especially if it's making a lot of negative player experiences throughout the game state.
Well, speaking of balancing, well, in my opinion, you guys can look this up at home, but Emperor Palpatine needs some work. He has a really strong ability, and he's really good, but if you use his elite die, which means you get 2 of them, that takes up almost every slot except for 1. Mm-hmm. That's where the plot card would come in handy, which is another scenario of which you could use it. But personally, I think taking up all the slots with 1 character is just a waste.
He does have 15 health points, let's be honest.
Yeah, but if you have 2 characters, that combines to like 20 or 30.
No, totally. Yeah, and then we've got the Rivals set coming out, which I'm super excited to try out. And basically you get a draft starter, which gives you some characters, including some neutral characters that you could throw into any deck, as well as combining that with some booster packs to actually play the draft. For those of you who might not be familiar with drafting, basically what would happen then is that you would open up the 3 packs. You'd have 3 booster packs. You open them up all together, stack them, and then you get to look through, choose one of those cards to keep, and if it has a die with it, you keep that as well, and then you pass the cards along to the next person. And then you do the same thing with the cards that you just got passed from the person on your other side. So it's super fun. It allows you to kind of deck build as you get your cards and stuff, because you decide like, oh, I want to build a yellow and blue deck and use this character. But then it also throws those challenges in, like the monkey wrenches into your plans, as maybe you're drafting and you get this super powerful character that wasn't in your initial deck scheme plan, but now you want to change your whole deck to fit them in.
All right, so in my opinion, what they could do to make it better is, for me and Harold have different ideas, but for me, I think they need more content, more interactions of the characters with the specific battlefields. I feel like it could be fun and thematic. My main problem with the battlefields is once you claim them, once you finish all your actions and somebody isn't done yet, you can claim the battlefield, and then it has a special ability you can use. My only problem is that it doesn't feel like it's really necessary. Some cards don't really do anything. You just claim the battlefield to go first. Which, yeah, that's all great and stuff, but then again, when you look back on it, they could do so much more with the battlefield. It kind of feels like it's just there to have it be there.
The one other thing that you run into with the battlefields is that if there was a tie, like if we both decked out at the same time or whatever, then whoever controls the battlefield wins. So that's just kind of a secondary thing with those.
We haven't encountered that yet.
Right.
I'd assume that'd be more common if 2 people were playing mill deck at the same time.
Or if our character somehow died off at the same time. The other thing is that I think it could be better is basically my criticism of any collectible card game. I want it to be better for the average person who's playing. I want the cards that are, really powerful cards to be a little bit more easily accessible. So not to have to go out and try to pay $50 for a force speed. I want it to be a little bit less of a gamble or a money suck to be able to build a decent competitive deck. Because I'm not one who's going to be going out and spending hundreds of dollars on a game, any game, I don't care what it is, even if I love it. I'm not going to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on it to get the cards that I really want. So that's my qualm with it. And I'm coming from playing, the last game that I was really into wasn't a collectible game. It was a living card game, which is specifically, I think, FFG language also. But it's basically that every card has the same amount of that card printed out, and you know exactly what you're getting in every pack, rather than doing the randomized booster packs and things like that.
Which is good and all, and it can feel really, really good when you get the card you want. But you don't want to blow like $500, not get the thing you want, but then like, well, I could have just bought that card for $8.
Yeah.
Which even for one card is a bit expensive, but still.
Yeah, no, totally. It adds up quickly, though. Even if you're buying the cheaper rares and it's, dishing out $2-3 a card at a time and you want a play set of it, it still adds up. So what's your overall rating?
Well, I give it 6 out of 10 diamonds, presently because it needs more content. Right now, the game feels a bit empty, though this might be an unfair judgment because I have been using Harold's 3 decks repeatedly. I don't have my own set of cards to customize and experience with, but I feel like there needs to be more heroes, more cards in general, and just different. It's not like a video game, so I don't know if this is the right word to use, but I want to say different modes. Like, you could have, like, a team mode where it's, like, 3 people versus 3 people, or 2v2, kind of like Two-Headed Giant in Magic.
Nice. I do want to just, point out that I tried to make you a deck all of your own, and it just flopped. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not good at deck building. It flopped bad. But I think it's because it was kind of like it didn't have its own cards. It was kind of the cards like, well, I don't want to use this in my main deck, and then I got kind of the hand-me-downs, but
yeah, you get the leftovers.
it's not like the main, like, good cards. If we got more of those, I'm pretty sure the deck could succeed.
Absolutely. And so I'd give it 8 out of 10 diamonds because I love the game. I love the gameplay. I especially really like the simplicity and the speed of the play. Like, I love not having to wait, generally at least. I mean, there are still people who can stretch it out somehow. But I love generally not having to wait for, like, 5 to 20 minutes for my opponent to take a turn while I'm sitting there being bored to tears, trying to keep up with whatever the heck they're doing. So I love that, really, that it's a quick back and forth in the play of the game itself. It seems to be fairly balanced overall, especially like the 2-player game. If you want to just get into this super casually and you go and you pick up the 2-player game for $20 to $30, depending on where you find it, it's pretty balanced. It's a fun game to play right out of the box like that. And if you like more competitive environments and you want to go to your favorite local game store and play, it's fairly simple to grab 2 copies of that, and you could make a deck that you could probably have some fun with. You're probably not going to win the tournament that way, though. But there are plenty of ways to break it, of course, as there are with all games, and to make negative player experiences. But I'm committed to playing it fairly casually myself, and I'm having a lot of fun with that.
I don't want to bust my back or break my wallet going and spending money on cards when it's not really something I'm going to do competitively.
Yep.
Something I just do as a pastime for fun. I shouldn't spend like $500 on.
Yeah. So those are our thoughts on Star Wars Destiny. If you have any games that you'd like for us to review in the future, we'd love to hear your thoughts and your ideas. Feel free to shoot us an email. You can email me at hvance, HVANCE, at F as in Franklin, W as in West, S as in supervisory, U as in union, because that's what the FWSU actually stands for, .org. Again, that's hvance at fwsu.org. Send us some ideas of games that you'd like to see reviewed in the future, because you could have Average Joe and Average Harold play them before you do and spend your hard-earned money on them and get some decent thoughts on what the gameplay's like, the styles, the fun factor, the diamond rating.
Oh, them diamonds.
Gotta get them diamonds. We have yet to see a 10 out of 10 diamond review.
Yeah?
I'm just saying, I don't know if it exists for the average gamer.
For me, in my opinion, I already know of a 10 out of 10. It's Star Wars Battlefront 2. Not the one I reviewed last time, but it is a Star Wars Battlefront 2 game. It was made by Pandemic Studios on the PlayStation 2. It still has a small community with modding and stuff on the PC, but I think it's probably just the nostalgia fact because me and all my friends used to play it all day when I was a kid, and it just has a special place in my heart.
So that gives it like an extra 5 diamonds for you. The other thing we'll try to do is to maybe not do a Star Wars game next time.
Oh my God, I didn't
we
even
might
realize
bust
that.
out of our little comfort zone, but with the movie, we're both really excited.
Yeah, we've been on that Star Wars train.
So we're drinking the Yoda juice right now.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means, but
I'm afraid of. I don't know what that is either.
there's a lot of metachlorians in it. That's all I know.
Yep, it's not good stuff. Not good stuff.
Oh man, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you on the flip side with another
Average Joe game review.
Booyah!
We'll see you next time.
Hello and welcome back. I just have to see how cringy I can get sometimes.
It's good.
Yeah, I'm grooving. We're moving. We're grooving to the moving. Speak into your microphone.
Oh, I didn't catch on to that.
Let's see how we are doing.
Great.
Put it in the Star Wars Destiny, baby.
Oh, not
yeah.
if you're doing that. Not if you're doing that.